right. Well, good morning, everyone. For those of you that are new here, my name is Shelby Pritchard. I am the IPM specialist here at SDSU, as well as the moderator for this Crop Hour webinar series. Appreciate all of you taking time out of your morning to be here with us today. Quick reminder, as always, we will have a couple of short polls throughout the presentations today. It's just a couple of questions, super quick. We appreciate your feedback. And I will also be throwing up a CCA credit for anyone who needs that, and I'll make sure I keep it up long enough for you to get that. We might have had some sound issues earlier, but just to make sure everyone knows, there is that Q&A feature at the bottom of your screen. Please feel free to ask questions throughout the presentation. So we'll jump right into it. Our first speaker today is Laura Edwards. Laura Edwards was appointed as the SDSU Extension State Climatologist in January of 2017. She's based at the Aberdeen Regional Extension Center, and she obtained her master's degree in meteorology from the University of Maryland and has a bachelor's degree in physics and French from the University of Minnesota. And today she's going to be talking about the 2022 spring and summer climate outlook. So with that, Laura, take it away.
All right, thanks, Shelby, for the introduction. For today's presentation, I'm splitting the hour with Kevin Lau, hydrologist at the River Forecast Center for the Missouri River Basin. So I'll be speaking the first half of the time, and then Kevin will present the flood outlook portion on the second half of the hour. So we'll roll right into it. I know this picture is not at all what we're seeing today. I'm up here in Aberdeen, where we have a blizzard warning in effect right now. So a totally different weather situation, but we're looking ahead towards spring and summer, right? And looking ahead towards the growing season, which I think will be another interesting year. Every year, right? It's interesting, but we're going to start off today talking about current conditions, kind of where we're at here today or this winter, and kind of what that means for spring, and also look at the climate outlooks that NOAA's Climate Prediction Center has released here just last week that kind of gives us some insight into the spring and summer. So let's see here. All right. So first of all, talking about drought. We've got quite a bit of drought across the landscape, across the region, I should say, from kind of South Dakota westward is almost entirely covered with some level of drought. So looking at the U.S. Drought Monitor as of last week, this is D1 or worse is actually categorized as drought. The D0 color yellow is abnormally dry, so that could be coming into or going out of drought or just some abnormally dry conditions. And as we zoom into South Dakota, as of last week, we have about 2/3 of the state, 65% of the state in some level of drought, D1 or D2 level. That's about a 22% point increase from the week prior. So the Drought Monitor map is updated every week of the year. And so we can see changes in drought, even in the cold season, even the winter season. And the impacts of drought are not just agriculture. Certainly that's a factor, a consideration, but we've been looking at particularly the lack of snowfall over this winter season and the very warm temperatures for the season so far too that have caused a lot of evaporation, water loss in the already low stock ponds, and their impacts too that we've been looking at, such as reduction of snowmobiling, recreation, skiing in the Black Hills. Those kinds of things too are also drought impacts and what we might call snow drought. So all of those come into play in the winter season, and we've been hearing a lot of comments too out west in particular about dry soils, even now, in being able to put fence posts in and those kinds of things as recently as last week. As I've traveled around the state here in the last month and a half or so, I've been hearing increasingly more concern, especially in the central and western part of the state, as far as kind of where we're going to be starting off here in the spring season. So a lot of times in the winter, I like to look at soil moisture. It's kind of our first indicator, and I'm guessing Kevin might do similar for the flood side of things. But when we're looking at drought conditions, it also tells a story on the dry side. This is a newer product from NASA, the NASA Sport Soil Moisture product, and they have a lot of different things you can look at their website. But this is looking at the percentile of the soil profile and how wet or dry we are compared to kind of average for this time of year. So anything on the green, blue side is wetter than average. Anything on the orange, red side is drier than average. So a lot of variability across the state. Northeastern part of the state, really wet for this time of year. We see that dryness in the south central and southwestern corner of the state, and a lot of local variability, wet and dry. Again, this is just one product. Doesn't tell the whole story, certainly, about drought, but kind of gives us an indication of where we're starting from. When we look at that northeastern quarter of the state, really, a lot of that moisture came from fall rain. August, September, October in particular was very wet. I know there are parts of that northeastern South Dakota that received more than 20 inches in about an 8-week period. And, Brown County here where I'm at in Aberdeen had, I believe, the 5th wettest October through December period on record in over 125 years. So we really had an exceptional soil recharge season, I should say, maybe in the fall. And that set us, that really improved or, helped with our drought situation in the fall, and will, I think, get us off to a decently good start here in the spring. But certainly I'm a little more concerned about those areas in the south in particular that are carrying over those dry soils, as they're now frozen, and the opportunity to recharge the soils now is pretty limited. Also, with very little snowpack, we don't have a lot of water on the landscape to help with that spring runoff either. One other thing, just agriculture related, that I want to share, not moisture related, but more temperature related, is that we had a very late frost last year. So the date of our first 32-degree temperature was really pretty late. And you can see the shades of green there in October, the first third, middle third, or last third of October. And much of the state was the middle to last third of October. Some isolated areas did have a 32-degree reading in late September. But if you look at how this compares to average, for the median date, I should say, the kind of middle of if you take all the dates, what's the middle date of 32-degree temperature reading? We typically see that really more in late September to that first third of October. So we had a late frost about 2 to 3 weeks later than average. And what that means is we had that extra bonus time for insects, weeds. I remember dandelions were a big issue, some other field weeds, grasshoppers and other insects that really needed a frost to really knock them back. It really came late this year. And so just a heads up, and I don't know if Paul Johnson on weeds or Adam Varenhorst has mentioned this on insect side, but certainly keep an eye out early for that first spring flush. If you had some issues in the fall, keep an eye on those pre-emerge treatments for sure. Similarly, on the 28-degree what I call hard frost or killing frost, that occurred pretty soon after the 32-degree temperature freeze frost. So, again, probably the last third of October, even early November for some areas of the southeastern part of the state in that brown color. So again, this was, compared to average, maybe about 10 days later than average or so for a lot of us, maybe 2 weeks or so later than typical for most of us. So again, keep an eye on that early season, especially if we get a string of warm temperatures here. Won't take long after the soil thaws out for some of that stuff to come creeping back from the fall. And we've had a generally warm winter too, except for what's coming up this week, right? So La Niña, as we're looking at winter, we're kind of closing out the winter season as we're in the last week of February here. Meteorological winter is December, January, and February. And La Niña generally has its most significant impact really around this late winter time, around February, more or less. So as we're closing out February, I didn't want to share that information, but looking ahead towards March, historically, what has La Niña meant for March temperature and precipitation? And this is looking at kind of average of all La Niñas historically up until about 2010 or so. On the left-hand side is precipitation. You see quite a bit of beige around the region. That means typically there hasn't been any correlation really with precipitation La Niña, neither wet nor dry. But we do see around the southern, southeastern corners of the state of South Dakota that on average we have tended rather a little bit on the dry side in these La Niña springs in March anyway. On the temperature side, we do tend to lean on the colder side, just slightly so anyway in March. In February, that tends to be much stronger signal. Didn't really happen in February overall. We're seeing some cold weather this week, but we haven't generally seen much cold weather this year. But we do see that kind of linger into March, especially the west and northern regions where we tend to see some of those colder temperatures, at least historically, for La Niña. If you want to look at individual La Niña years, so the La Niña strength this winter, this season, was projected to be of moderate strength. And I didn't look where we sit currently, but this map or this graphic from NOAA shows every La Niña winter, that's December, January, February, as we're just ending it. Every La Niña winter from 1950 to 2012, ranked in order from the strongest at the top to the weakest at the bottom. So I've highlighted in the red boxes, the moderate strength La Niñas. And in general, across all of those events, all those seasons, temperatures were cooler than average in those La Niña winters. But you can see, even in the strong to weak ranges, we have seen warm winters and cold. We tend to see more cold than not, but we have seen some very warm winters in La Niña seasons. So not every La Niña is the same as far as temperature goes. But like I just showed you on the precipitation side, again, this is every La Niña 1950 to 2012 ranked in order of strength, with the moderate ones, again, in the red boxes. On the precipitation side, we don't see real clear signal either way, wet or dry. We see some years tend slightly wet, some years slightly dry. It's kind of all over. It's kind of a mixed bag, but nothing really sticks out strongly. So this is when I say La Niña doesn't tell us a whole lot of winter precipitation, and forecasting snowfall, for example, now is pretty tough We don't have a whole lot of good indicators to use in winters like this, where we have a lot of variability with cold and warm and back and forth, a lot of back and forth this winter. The La Nina by itself is not a great predictor on precipitation, but also I also say the caveat that kind of like investments, past performance may not be an indicator of future performance. Every La Nina winter is different. And as we get now into the spring season, March into April in particular, we tend to see La Nina wane in the spring season. So the time of its highest impact in our region is coming to a close pretty soon. Looking at 6 to 10 days, so starting to look at, oh, hi, Eric. Yep, hang on. I'll share that in a minute. Whoops. Looking at now the outlook for starting with the next week or so, 6 to 10 days out. So the next few days, say 4 days, we're going to see very cold temperatures. The National Weather Service offices, the 3 offices in the state, have already started talking about this. After this current blizzard and winter weather passes, we'll be in a cold period for most of the work week here. After that, though, week to week and a half from now, 6 to 10 days from now, we'll see that area cold temperatures really kind of move off to the east, with above average temperatures kind of filtering in from the northwest. And along with that, generally dry period, seems like pretty good odds there of below average precipitation for that 6 to 10 day period. So this would be the last couple days in February, first couple days in March, just a week from now. 8 to 14 days out, so 1 to 2 weeks out from now. Don't see a stronger temperature signal at that time, either warm or cold necessarily, but we do see maybe a shift towards a more active weather pattern with some better odds of precipitation in the 8 to 14 day period. So what I'm seeing here as I look at this next few days into a week to 2 weeks from now, again, a lot of this pattern change happening right around this time. Just like we've seen a lot of the winter. I know January was a roller coaster up and down. And I think we're going to continue to see that here at the end of February and into the first week of March is kind of what it looks like here. As we look ahead, the next 7-day total precipitation, again, most of this is weighted just really in the next day or so as we're kind of getting the end of this winter storm. And then it's very quiet after the next couple days. So again, these amounts of precipitation are very small, less than a tenth or so for the most part, less than a quarter inch, as we're just, again, ending this precipitation event that we're in right now. Let's see here. Looking ahead towards March. This outlook was released on February 17th, so just last Thursday. NOAA will release an update to this on the 28th, on the last day of the month, so just keep a heads up for that. But as of last Thursday, temperature and precipitation outlook. They did change a little bit here up in our region on the temperature side. Previously, we were at equal chances of warmer, cooler, or near average temperature, and they've really brought up that area slightly favored to be warmer than average here across much of South Dakota, with the exception of the northwest corner. On the precipitation side, again, kind of like La Nina is not telling us a lot. Spring season in general is very challenging to forecast as we're moving from more of a winter into a summer kind of thunderstorm season. Spring season is often pretty tough, but they have been holding in on equal chances of wetter, drier, or near average for precipitation for March. But you will see that kind of finger of the beige color kind of coming up from the south That's kind of been flirting with South Dakota a little bit here in the last couple months that I've been looking at. And again, that's the area, if you remember, the soil moisture side has already been carrying over some deficit of moisture. So, you know, along that southern tier of the state, especially, I'd be a little more aware or conscious of potential drought continuing or developing further as we look ahead into March. Looking at March, April, and May, so this is a 3-month outlook or seasonal outlook that NOAA Climate Prediction Center issues. Still holding on to much of that same region, the state on the left, favored to be warmer than average. Again, not really high confidence in that, but some odds tilting that way. And then you see on the right, that area is favored to be below average for precipitation in the spring season. You know, even for the rest of the state, though, where we still see our most severe drought conditions in the northwest part of the state, you know, even near average precipitation is maybe challenging. You know, I think we need a little bit more than average to really get substantial recovery. We'll see. And with the warmer outlook, at least in the southern part of the state, southern and eastern, you know, temperature can exacerbate drought conditions as well. So depending on timing and all these other things, I think the timeliness of the rains is going to be really important. But I am concerned in the south in particular about drought lingering and or getting worse this spring season. You know, April, May, June is our wettest time of year, but if we don't catch those rains, I especially grass pasture forages could be struggling here this spring season. I'd say now is the time to start putting your drought plan together. Start thinking about what might be some dates, some trigger dates of note if you're worried about drought and when you might have to start making some decisions if you haven't already, especially if you're in that southern part of the state. Looking ahead towards the heart of the summer, June, July, and August, those odds kind of move more to the west as far as areas favored to be warmer than average. You know, last year this time, NOAA's Climate Prediction Center was already pegging us at warmer than average summer, and they really nailed that, fortunately or unfortunately. But right now, most of the Dakotas and northern Minnesota, you know, equal chances of warmer, cooler, near average temperatures. So that's interesting because we don't see that forecast too often. But we got time. We got time to see still if there's more clarity as we come into the next couple of months in the spring. And then on the precipitation side, again, an area that's most concerning to me for drought, again, is that southern part of the state. Odds leaning towards drier than average in that June, July, August timeframe. So, you know, being aware that we could be entering, again, another year of drought. Not to say we can't see some ups and downs, some improvements here and there during the season, but certainly prepare for the worst, hope for the best is maybe my message here for this season, as I know we are, again, carrying over and still dealing with drought from the last year and a half or so. And I think this is my last slide here. Just kind of summing up all of this together into the seasonal drought outlook. Again, this is issued by the Climate Prediction Center. I don't often share this, but I think it kind of summarizes my sentiments here, where we'll see drought lingering, continuing in those areas that already have drought here across the region. The yellow areas where they say drought development likely, kind of filling in those holes of D0 that are in the drought monitor right now. I do agree that I think we'll see some drought development here, kind of filling in those holes in the spring season. Again, giving the warmer temperatures and much of that area slightly leaning towards drier here in the spring and summer season. This outlook, this seasonal drought outlook goes through the end of May. So on May 31st, they'll check and see where we are compared to last week when this was released. So I know that's kind of tough news there, but we got some fall season recovery, especially in the northeastern part of the state. We do have some long-term dryness lingering. Be aware of any concerns you might have in that frost-free, due to late frost, in the fall. La Niña doesn't tell us a lot on precipitation, so if you ask me about a snowfall forecast for the rest of the season, that's kind of hard to pin down. But it does look like potentially warmer in the southern and eastern part of the state, potentially drier in the summer in the west. I'm going to skip ahead a couple slides here just to get to some points about the mesonet in my last couple of minutes here. So if you haven't heard already, I know I've been sharing this at most of the winter meetings I've been at. The Mesonet website there, mesonet.sdstate.edu, is where the weather stations for SDSU can be found. They're live weather data, updated every 5 minutes. This is the current map of all the locations that are active now. So we have, they have over 40 stations now that are active. So an increase of 10 or 15 from last year this time. And thanks to a project, a grant from, or contract with the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, the Mesonet is undergoing substantial upgrades in their equipment, and they project to have over 150 weather stations installed in about 5 years' time. So about every 25 miles, we'll be seeing a weather station. They don't do a big news release every time they have a new station, because there's coming fast and furious during the summer season when they can get out there. But they were able to upgrade about 14 of them late last year due to the very mild fall, early winter. Here's a picture of what one of those looks like. So they're at 10-meter towers instead of 10 feet. And on the left are all the weather measurements that they take. The things in red are the new upgrades. So they've upgraded the precipitation gauge, which is a really big deal, where now they have a heated rim on the rain gauge. So it melts snow as it falls, and they can measure the liquid equivalent of snowfall all year round. So you'll see basically all season precipitation, not just the rain in the warm season. They're also measuring snow depth, in addition to all the other things of temperature and wind speed, direction, and all the other things that they've been doing. Soil moisture and temperature sensors at 5 depths. And they're still, thanks to a grant we have with South Dakota Soybean, we're still measuring temperature inversions. For those of you who use the spray tool, as the stations are upgraded, however, those temperature sensors are shifting up. So at the old style Mesonet, they were 1 and 3 meters. They're going to be moving to 2 and 10 meter height with the new towers. So part of that reasoning is to keep us in line, or get us in line with a lot of our neighboring states who have also started taking inversion measurements. We were restricted by our tower height previously. So now we're kind of trying to standardize across the region at 2 and 10 meters. But all the formulas in the spray tool, all that information will be adjusted as those equipment are upgraded. And we have webcams as well. So frost depths, Eric, I saw you asked about this, and I think Kevin might have a picture about this too. So this is current frost depth as of this morning. I will say we're seeing huge fluctuations week to week. Last week this time, the frost depths were 10 to 40 inches, maybe 10 to 35 maybe. And we're seeing with the very shallow or no snow cover, as soon as the air temperature gets cold, these soils just really drop their frost depth quickly. So there's a lot of variability this season, especially without that insulating layer of snow cover. But this is what we have, at least as of this morning. Also snow depth. This is using our new sensors. So again, not every station has this equipment yet, but the ones that do are reporting. And we're using our webcams to help verify this. So we see the deepest snow depth in the northeast corner. No big surprise. They've had the most snow cover for the season so far. And then we are starting to see some snow on the central and west as well. Here's a picture of Beersford as of this morning. So you can see it's just covering the grass, just barely. So not a lot of snow out there, but starting to see something different than brown ground out there. We also capture blizzards. So this was South Shore. This wasn't just last night. This was early January when the earlier blizzard came through in January. But so we're capturing all kinds of weather out there and using the webcam images to help verify this. You can see these images. They're updated as 5-minute intervals like the weather data are. So, and the Mesonet staff are looking for folks who are interested in hosting a Mesonet station on their property, on their land. They're starting to fill in the holes across the map. Again, it's a 5-year plan to get the installations in, so it could take a little while. But if you'd like to apply to host a weather station, I think they've moved this link over in the top menu where it says hosting. So it might not be the yellow bar at the top anymore, but you can see the map of where they need locations. And if you are a potential to fill in that hole, please do fill out an application and get your name on the list. So with that, here's my contact information, also on Twitter and Facebook if you want to connect with me there. And I'm happy to take questions, comments, complaints as we switch over to Kevin. Thanks for your time today.
All right, thank you so much, Laura. I'll have you stop screen sharing so I can pull up that CCA credit for everyone, and then that little poll. Let's see. And then while I have that up, I'll just briefly introduce our next speaker. So Kevin Lau is a river forecaster for the National Weather Service's Missouri Basin River Forecast Center that's located in Pleasant Hill, Missouri. And Kevin has been with the National Weather Service for 23 years. And today he's going to be talking about the spring flood outlook. So I will go ahead and stop sharing. And then Kevin, if you want to go ahead and share your slides.
Okie doke. Good morning, Shelby.
Good morning. Good morning.
Okay. Do you see anything that resembles correct?
Yes, it looks great.
Awesome. Okay, thank you. And I do wish to thank Shelby and Laura and all those who host these series of webinars for inviting me to come on and speak to you this morning. As Shelby said, my name is Kevin Lau, and I am with the National Weather Service Missouri Basin River Forecast Center, located just outside of Kansas City. Our office has responsibility for river forecasting within the Missouri River Basin. That's highlighted in the navy blue here on my intro screen. We cover all but just a very smidgen of extreme northeast South Dakota. And that couple of counties up there are covered by our sister office located in Minneapolis. Today, I'll be providing the spring 2022 flood outlook for the entire Missouri River Basin. We issued our first outlook about 2 weeks ago, and some of the graphics that you'll see here kind of go back to that time. We are in the process of developing our second spring outlook today and tomorrow, and then we will have a third outlook that we will distribute in 2 weeks from now. And then the National Weather Service headquarters will actually issue a national spring flood outlook on Thursday, March the 17th. So we'll go right into my slides here. So I hope my slide changed there, Shelby.
Yep, you're good.
Okay, so I'm going to start off by saying that there is an overall reduced risk or flood risk across the entire basin. That kind of goes without saying, given the drought conditions that have plagued us since 2020. Over the course of the next few slides, I'll add to what Laura has already discussed as to why we believe there is a reduced flood risk. This first slide presents the basis, if you will, on how we develop our spring flood outlooks. And I'm going to spend a little bit of time on this particular slide before I move on. On the left-hand graphic, you'll see the 400 plus locations that our office issues forecasts for, river forecasts. They're depicted as those little bitty dots that you can't really see too well, but that's the 400 plus locations that we can issue a river forecast for. Some of those locations will issue a forecast for every day, like along the main stem Missouri River itself. So every month, and sometimes more often than once a month, our office will run our river forecast model out into the future, usually 90 days, sometimes a few months. And we will use historic temperatures and historic precipitation records in this 90-day run that we make. And we'll run the model 30 times using the period of record temperatures and precipitation from 1991 through 2020. In other words, we'll run our model given today's conditions, snowpack, soil moisture. We'll run the model given today's condition, and we'll run 1991's temperature and precip through it. And that'll give us a hydrograph. That'll give us a hydrologic response at all 400 locations for the next 90 days. And then we'll do the same thing using 1992 temperature and precip, 1993 temperature and precip. And so we'll do that 30 times. We'll get 30 hydrographs. And then we rack and stack those. We do a statistical analysis to come up with a probability distribution. And that is depicted for a given location on the right-hand side of this graphic. So this is for a location that's actually located in northwest Missouri. But we'll do this analysis, and we'll produce these graphics for all 400 locations across the basin. And so the black line on this right-hand graphic, this black line represents the probability distribution from the 30 runs that we just made using today's conditions, and the valid data is over the next 90 days. So for the next 90 days, that black line gives us the probabilities of reaching any given stage. The blue line represents what we call the historic probabilities for this location. So it would represent the normal condition, if you will. So to interpret this slide or this graphic on the right-hand side, you would look at where the historic line, the blue line, passes through minor flood stage. And for this location, minor flood stage is that bar in the middle that's orange, and it's 17 feet, I believe. And so you would look, and historically, if you look at the blue line, the black line, you would see that it crosses a minor flood stage at roughly 75%. The blue line, that's the normal. So this location during the spring, we would say normally floods 75% of the time. So 3 out of 4 springs, this location would flood. Well, given today's conditions, today's soil moisture, today's snowpack, that is represented by the black line, and that crosses flood stage at 55%. So we see a reduction in flood risk of about 20% for this particular site. For this site, flood risk has been reduced about 20%. Now, we still think it's going to flood because it's greater than a 50-50 chance. So we think over the next 3 months, this location will see flooding. But as you can see, there's a significant reduction in that risk. And so going back then to the left-hand side, the map of the entire basin, we see that most of the basin has anywhere from a 10 to a 20% reduction in flood risk for this coming year. That doesn't mean, that's not to say that a location can or will flood or won't flood, because you have to actually look at the exact probability of where it crosses flood stage. But the idea that I want to present to you is because of the ongoing drought and lack of snow, there's a significant reduction in flood risk. Now, this map was created 2 weeks ago, and we've made some modifications, and this week's flood outlook will not show an increased risk for the eastern Dakotas. We've reduced, in our model, we've reduced the soil moisture. We've made some reductions in the frozen ground component. And so we are going to show flooding, and I'll get to that here in a couple of slides. But I'm not going to be saying that we have an increased flood risk, at least not a significant increased flood risk for that extreme eastern portion of the Dakotas. Okay, so that's enough for that slide. But that's sort of the basis, or is the basis, for our outlooks. It's these 90-day look aheads, and where the probabilities fall based on running historic precipitation and temperature through our models. Okay, as Laura already mentioned, there are dozens of soil moisture products out there. Here's a couple of products that I look at. And basically, it's the same story as what Laura already mentioned. And that is, for the bulk of our basin, we're very dry. As Laura mentioned, we had some, we were blessed with some fall rains that kind of tilted the eastern part of the Dakotas a little bit toward the wet. And I think that's one of the big indications, or the big factors in the fact that we've got some flooding outlook for the James, the Big Sioux, and the Little Sioux. But anyway, but most of the basin is continues in this dry period that we've seen since late 2020. Sorry, getting my pages all here mixed up. Okay, next slide. So frost depths. Someone asked about frost depths. So this is the frost depths from the different weather forecast offices that we get. The state mesonettes have a lot more information than what is depicted here. But I don't know if you can see my cursor or not, but I think Bismarck has a frost depth of 41 inches. Aberdeen, I believe, is coming in at 32 or 34. And Sioux Falls is coming in around 20. And frost depth is very important, because if the ground is moist and then gets frozen, then of course it acts like concrete. And we saw that back in 2019 with the tragedy that happened down in Nebraska in March of 2019. The ground it acted as concrete. But it's very difficult to know the exact extent to which the ground is acting as concrete. Yes, the soils can be cold. You can have deep frost depths, but is that entire depth completely frozen solid? And for most of the basin, we don't think that's the case. Where it could be is what Laura already indicated: extreme eastern North Dakota, extreme northeastern South Dakota. We could have a deeply frozen ground condition, but but for the most part, the basin, I think, will still be able to accept runoff from snow melt where we do have snow, from any future rain events or rain on snow events. So I think the ground is still going to be able to take some of the runoff. Okay, going to the mountains. Mountains play a very significant role in spring flooding, not just in the mountains, but that water goes downstream. So the mountain snowpack for this year is generally below normal. We are about 75% of the way through mountain snowpack accumulation season. So we still got about 25%, typically 25% of the snow accumulation period still yet to go. So things could change, but at the same time, I'm thinking that we're kind of getting into a focus here that to expect that the mountain snowpack is going to be below normal for this year. And that then leads us to our water supply forecast. So our office produces water supply forecasts for about 40 locations in the mountainous West, sort of like what the NRCS does. They also produce water supply forecasts as well. We use a little different method. But what this graphic is showing is that based on the below normal mountain snowpack, we're also expecting, therefore, that we're going to see a below normal or below average mountain snowpack runoff season this year. And also, I'll hasten to add that we don't expect any significant flooding in the mountains from mountain snow melt this year. Plain snowpack pretty much is non-existent. I mean, it is widespread, but it's very shallow. The only significant plain snowpack that we have is in that eastern North Dakota area, where the headwaters of the James River Basin at most probably has about 3 inches of snow water equivalent, the amount of liquid held in the snowpack. And we do have some snow in the upper reaches of the Big Sioux Basin there in South Dakota as well. But basically, the James and the Big Sioux are about the only two basins that have any plain snowpack that would, provide a hydrologic response from. And to put this in a little bit of perspective, here's a couple of comparisons against normal, if you will, of plains snow. The one on the right is provided to us by the National Weather Service Office of Water Prediction. It gives a 17-year, where we're sitting today, where I guess it was actually February the 18th, but how did February the 18th plain snowpack compare to February 18th of the past 17 years? And again, we're roughly normal only in the eastern North Dakota area. Everywhere else is below normal. I think maybe something that might be even more informative is the graph to the left, which gives the accumulated snowfall departure from average since the beginning of the water year, going back to October 1st. And so, as you can see, there's a great dearth in the amount of plains snow that we've received. Okay, now to the real reason why I was asked to come on here. So this is where we do expect flooding over the next 3 months. We do expect minor flooding along the James River, basically in the state line, North Dakota, South Dakota state line, down to through Columbia, or is that Stratford? Yeah, Stratford. So in that area, we're expecting minor flood. 2 weeks ago, we were indicating a possibility for major flooding, but again, we've reduced the frozen ground component. We've reduced the soil moisture. We think the potholes are going to be able to take on any significant runoff that we're going to see. So we've reduced that to a minor flooding. Likewise, in the Big Sioux, in the Watertown to Castlewood Reach, we're thinking that minor. And again, this goes back to that very first slide I showed with the probabilities. So these locations have a 50% or greater chance of reaching a certain threshold. And so both in the James River and the Big Sioux, these locations have a greater than 50% chance of reaching flood. And then the Little Sioux around Spencer, Milford Reach there in Iowa, we're also indicating likelihood of minor flooding over the next through mid-May. And then the state of Missouri, eastern Kansas, the state of Missouri. I could have drew this map 20 years ago. We always have flooding in this area during this time period. It's driven by thunderstorm activity, whether the soils are dry or not. We will have flooding of the minor to moderate type. In fact, we just had flooding over the past couple of days in that very lowest sub-basin, the Gasconade, there in the Ozarks of Missouri. We just came off some minor flooding down there. We had a couple of inches of rain a few days ago. The Missouri River itself, it's unlikely that we will see flooding between now and mid-May. However, looking further down the road, we do expect minor flooding along the Missouri River. And I'm talking episodic, thunderstorm-driven, off and on flooding from Nebraska City all the way to St. Louis. But that's the probabilities really get going in late May through early July. And again, that's a typical season for the Missouri main stem below Gavin's Point. So in summary then, flood risk for the Missouri Basin is lower than normal this year, kind of goes without saying. Mountain snowpack is below average. Plain snowpack is pretty much non-existent, except for eastern North Dakota. Soils are very dry. Yes, they're cold, but I still think that the soils can accept some runoff. Ice jamming, haven't talked too much about ice jamming today, or any, I guess. I think we probably had our seasonal ice out, Nebraska southward. For you guys, North Dakota out west, I think there still remains ice jam breakup flood potential, but I think it is much reduced over normal. But I kind of have to say that, it's always out there. So flood potential for the mountains, hardly no flood potential for the mountains. Flood potential in the northern plains, again, the James, and that's primarily the James in South Dakota, the upper reaches of the Big Sioux and the Little Sioux. Lower basin, we will have on again, off again flooding in southern Iowa, eastern Kansas, southeastern Nebraska and Missouri. And that's all driven because Mother Nature gives us thunderstorms. In the Missouri River, I expect some minor flooding, but after late May. And I think that's all I have to talk to you about. So open for questions if they're easy.
All right. Thank you so much, Kevin. We do have a question. So it says, those Kentucky, Tennessee latitudes seem to get hammered with weather. Is it just that area between the reach of the typical cold air and the warmer air?
Oh, wow. That's a great question, but I'm a civil engineer. So Laura, you're a meteorologist. Can you feel that? They are getting hit. They're getting, my mom and dad live down in that Ohio Valley, and they've got more rain than they can deal with.
Yeah, and I think that's partly why we've been so dry. The jet stream, the storm tracks have just been trending south, kind of focusing over the Ohio River Valley area. And they've kind of been stuck in that pattern or seen several rounds kind of through that area. So The same pattern that's been bringing us dry weather has been bringing them more of the moisture, more of the active weather.
Okay, and any other questions? Well, if there aren't any, just want to say thank you to Laura and Kevin again for presenting today. And we hope, well, there's another poll if you would like to answer some of those questions, that'd be wonderful. And we hope to see everyone tomorrow when we talk about stored grain management.
Thanks, Kevin, for calling in today.
Oh, it was my pleasure. Thanks, Laura, for asking me.
I know it's a busy week with your next update coming out, so.
That's right. I had a free day yesterday. I could work all day without anyone calling me, so.
All right. Well, thanks again, you guys.
All right, thanks, Shelby.